my name is Vikki. I'm in recovery for chaos creating, controlling, fixing. Sometimes we call that codependency. And actually how I got into the rooms was through the Al-Anon program. That's initially where I started. Because I really wanted people to show me how I could better help someone else, like help me fix this person. There's a group for that, right? And so that's where I got started. But that is not where I wound up today. Today, I fully and completely understand that I need a program of action that has depth and weight that can, it has restored me to sanity and that can keep me in a place of sanity. And a large part of that for me is staying really present with like, what is my problem and really wanting, for the first time in my life, I think really wanting to see myself clearly. And so today I bring you a story. It's a fable, and some might call it a fable. It's quite popular. Most people have probably heard of this story. And actually that's part of the problem. So it's a story about a man who gets swallowed by a whale. And so this story, it's in the Bible. There's lots of stories in the Bible that have really great lessons for us. And so when I was reading this story from a new perspective, I really saw in this story how it really plays into my life today. So Jonah is a man who, for some reason, God decides he's going to talk to and he's going to call. And so God gave Jonah an instruction and Jonah ran. Jonah ran, like, not just like, oh, I don't want to do what you asked me to do, but like, I'm going to go. I don't want to go to the place that you told me to go. I want to go to like the actual opposite, as far away as I can go. I'm going to the like way furthest place I can think of. And so he gets on a boat and he pays the fare and he goes away to this place, or goes on this boat to go to a place called Tarshish. And so right away, we see this man is not cooperative and he really just does not want to be useful. So he gets on this boat and he tells the people who run the boat, like, because it's not his boat, so he paid a fare. There's people sailing this, it would be a big ship probably, because there's a verse that says that he went down to the bowels of the boat and he went to sleep. And then this big storm hits. And I think most of us, we know this part of the story where, he winds up, getting thrown off the boat, swallowed by a whale. And there's a lot of, anyway, so I don't want to skip ahead, because the first part that I saw was like, Jonah is deep down in the bowels of this ship, sleeping and running. And like, he should know better. He should know. He would really have known like a lot of what was said earlier in the Bible. In these days, people had it memorized, and he would have known that there's nowhere you can go to run away from God. And yet it's the first thing he tried to do when he got these instructions. He ran. So he's down in the bowels of the ship sleeping. And for me, as I was reading this story through fresh eyes, I had this picture, or the phrase rock bottom came to me. I was like, is that rock bottom? So you're sleeping in the bottom of a ship and there's a massive storm wailing, and all of these sailors on this boat, they're each praying to their own God. And they really are like, we got to figure this out. In this culture, they're very spiritual, actually. They each had their own God. Some of them had multitudes of gods that they would pray to. And, they're like, wait a minute, where's that guy? Let's go get him. So they confront Jonah and they're asking Jonah, like, who, so I'll find it. It says, tell us who's to blame for this trouble. Because they cast lots. That's how they used to do things back in the day. They would like throw dice somehow and they would get an answer to a question that they had. So they cast lots and it comes up that Jonah is the one to blame. So they turn to Jonah and they say, tell us, Like, who's to blame for this trouble that we're in? You know, the dice are basically saying, you can tell us. And Jonah says, I'm a Hebrew. I worship the Lord, the God of the heavens, who made the sea and the dry land. And that made me stop for a moment, because he's running from God. So you just literally just spoke a bold-faced lie. You don't worship God, Jonah. You're running from God. You're hiding from God. You, like, if you want to worship something, it actually requires turning your full attention to that thing, which, you know, most of us know how to do. I can get on, you know, I can worship Netflix and get on a binge, and I've once watched like 7 seasons in a very short period of time. Like, that is literally what I did. I worshiped Netflix for that period of time. And so here's Jonah. We catch Jonah in this bold-faced lie, like total hypocrisy. No, you don't worship God. And he actually says, this is the God of the heavens who made the sea and the dry land. And these men are like immediately terrified. But that whole interaction brought to me like a question. How often do I think that I'm a certain way, and yet I'm actually completely not? Like, how often have I spoken, oh, I'm this or I'm that, you know, I'm Vikki, I'm in recovery from codependency, or I'm in recovery from chaos creating. And what has been the most recent thing that I've been doing? You know, maybe it's not that thing, or maybe I just get used to talking a certain way because I grew up in church. And so I talk a certain way, but it doesn't actually mean anything in my life. You know, I'm not actually applying it. So that was the first thing that really came to mind, where in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous on page 30, it says, most of us have been unwilling to admit that we are real alcoholics. And for me, I changed that to a real controller fixer or a real chaos creator. You know, no one likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking career, or in my case, my thinking career, has been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove that I could think like other people, that I can live like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his thinking or her thinking is the great obsession of every abnormal thinker. Because you get what I'm doing now. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it to the gates of insanity or death. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were real chaos creators, controller fixers, or alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people, or presently may be, has to be smashed. We alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. And I lost the ability to control my thinking. So, you know, this is the beginning of the work that's bringing us to destroy this delusion that I'm in control of my life. And the reality was that I spent so many years trying to be in control of my life. Like Jonah, oh, forget this. I'm just going to go get on this boat and I'll go this other way where I don't have to be disturbed by what God is telling me to do. And I think it's really important to note that at this point, the reason that Jonah ran, because it really ties in with us too in recovery. Jonah ran because Jonah was being asked to go and share a message with a group of people that he couldn't stand. Like, these were their mortal enemies. This group of people that he was being sent to bring a message of God's love and like turn from your sin and repent and God's going to save you. Jonah was like, save them? Like, they don't deserve to be saved. I don't want to go bring a message to those people. Like, do you know what all my neighbors and friends would think of me if I went to those people and then I'm the reason that they're saved? Like, no way. I'm not going there. I'm not going to go talk to them. Do you know what they've done to us? And a lot of us, we get into recovery and we want to be sober. We want to have a life that's worth living. We want peace and contentment. Maybe I want to be able to keep a job. Maybe I realize that my relationships are all like in conflict. There's lots of reasons that I can get into recovery. And then I can do this work. I go through these steps and I get to this place where this work is telling me you can't hang on to resentments. You can't afford to hang on to resentments. You got to let this go. And I think a lot of us stop and we're like, yeah, but you don't know what they did to me. Like, you don't understand my life. You don't understand what happened to me. I can't. No, like, they don't deserve my forgiveness. They don't deserve to be let off. And a lot of us, me, okay, I can be a little more sneaky about it. I will say that I've forgiven. Oh yeah, totally. Like, I've forgiven them. I've let it go. And yet it keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. Why do I need to avoid this place over here? Why do I need to avoid that circumstance? This book in the beginning of Alcoholics Anonymous is telling me, like, I actually don't have a choice. Like, Vikki and the illusion of Vikki and who she is and who she thought she was, like, that whole illusion that I'm in control, that I have it figured out, had to be smashed. I don't have it figured out. But this work brings me through a process of connecting to a power greater than me that can restore me to sanity. So we go through this story of Jonah. The guys on the boat, they're like, yep, you're to blame. Like, you can't run from your God. They don't believe in Jonah's God. They believe in other gods, but they're like, oh no, you can't run from, no, we don't want to mess with your God. Forget it. They throw him overboard and the storm stops. And those men all go, oh crap, did you see what just happened? That's the God we want. We want that God. We want the God that can stop the storm the minute we throw the guy over the boat. And God sends a whale to swallow Jonah. And Jonah has this like moment in the belly of the whale where he is completely repentant. Like, he goes through this whole dialogue and a prayer of like, God, I'm so sorry. He cries out to God in his distress. And he goes on. It's actually pretty much like this whole chapter of like, I'm so sorry. And he repents and he sees like, no, I need to go do what you called me to do. Yes, I'm going to do this work. I'm going to work this program. I want to be of service to others. Yes, I'm going to go. You called me. I'm going to carry this message. And so he gets there in chapter 3. He goes to this city. So the whale spits him up. He goes to this city, walks in, and the message that he speaks is basically like 5 words. It's in Hebrew, it's 5 words. I think in English it's 8. And it basically says, in a nutshell, it's literally the laziest, least thought out sermon, I think, in like the entire Bible and possibly in the history of sermonizing. I'm not a sermon expert or anything, but what he says was, in 40 days, this city will be demolished. That's it. That's all. And it's almost like he really didn't want it to be effective. It's like he's kind of sort of doing what he's supposed to be doing, but not really. Like, it just doesn't, to me, feel like a wholehearted, like he's really all in, wants to be of maximum service. And it actually really works. It worked. It's amazing, which is a whole other thing about just God doesn't really need us. God can do whatever he wants. And this whole city repents. And these evil people who've been like just tormenting the surrounding cities and just like torturing people. You can actually go to a museum in England, I think it is, and you can see like the walls that they found from this from Assyria, and they have like depictions of torture and everything. Like, these were really evil people. And then we get to chapter 4, And Jonah's pissed. Jonah is mad. Jonah was greatly displeased and became furious. And he prayed to God and said, please, God, isn't this what I thought while I was still in my own country? This is why I ran away in the first place. I knew that you were a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger, abounding in faithful love, and one who relents from sending disaster. So what I saw through that chapter was like, Jonah still carried resentment in his heart towards these people. Jonah was still angry. And this is literally, to me, one of the saddest books in the Bible, because it ends with Jonah sitting miserably outside this city, stewing in his anger. And God does it, God does a few different things to try to like change his heart. But in the end, he's just not happy. And the last thing God says to him is, you cared about a plant which you did not labor over, and you didn't grow it. It appeared in a night and perished in a night. I know I'm skipping part of the story, but God is saying to Jonah, like, I made these people, even though they're so evil, like I created them. How can you be mad at me because I'm having compassion for these people that I created? And it really made me stop, because I can do a really half-hearted, inventory process when I'm doing this work. I can do a really half-hearted amends process, right? Like, I don't really want to go to somebody that hurt me more than I hurt them, or I can make up a lot of reasons to not go to somebody at all and just say, well, no, the book says if it's going to cause more harm to me or them, like I really shouldn't go to them, so I can leave a lot of things unresolved. But I don't think I see clearly what happens to me by leaving these things unresolved, by leaving this resentment in my heart, by leaving this, like by stewing on hurt feelings, by holding on to hurt and anger and resentment. Like, I just don't see clearly what it does to me. But I thought that chapter in Jonah, like I just saw it through this new picture of where it really, he repented, but then he repented of his repentance. And how often do I want to do that? Like, I want to pick it back up. There's a poem that I found, and it's called Indiscretion. It says, I do not hate you, God. Please understand. You are A-okay. You are okay. A1, the very best. Second to none I know, great and beyond my criticism. So I say amen to you and all your good intentions. But I might be right about your indiscretion in forgiving folks gladly and shamelessly upon the least evidence of regret. I think you carry love too far. And it really made me think, like, if I stay thinking that there's a line of carrying love too far, am I still trying to run the show? Am I still trying to be in control? And I've seen the freedom that comes when I let God be God. When I do this work wholeheartedly, when I work through my stuff and actually allow God to be God of my life, like the power that comes in my life to do and be who I need to be, to have, all these promises in this book, like to have those promises come true in my life, I can't hold on. I can't actually stay in this opinion that there's an end to love, or that there's a limit to love. Yeah, I think that was my goal. Like, I can't run. And what I'm running from what I think I'm running from is the idea that there is like I want all the forgiveness. I want all the forgiveness. I want all the restoration. But am I good with like that could be the reality for other people too? Am I okay with that idea?